Welcome to another episode of the IBC Guys. I'm Mike. Not Mike. I'm Dave. I don't know where that came from. I'm Dave. This is Mike. Oh man. If you can't tell, there's two things I want to bring up. One, my mind's a little blank. We just recorded part one. So that was released last week. The second thing is I do change my shirt. We're just recording these episodes right in a row. So I don't always wear this shirt for every podcast we do. But last week we did part one of purchasing a car using IBC. We're going to get a little bit more into the weeds today. In part two, there wasn't enough time in our podcasting setup situation, whatever you want to call it, to get everything recorded all at once. So we're making it two parts. Before we jump in, I thought I tried to think of a joke. I don't have a good joke for you, Mike. But I was sharing with you. I'll share this with everybody at home. It is the Players Championship week. So I was just talking with you about this earlier. So my wife and I, we got married at a golf course called TPC Sawgrass. So if you're a golfer, you likely have heard of that. But every year they play the same tournament. It's called the Players Championship down in Ponte Vedra Beach. There you go, Florida. But my wife and I got married there, so we played the stadium course for my bachelor party, and the pros are playing it this week. So it's a very tough course. It's fun to watch them. There's a famous hole, the 17th hole. It's the green, and then there's just water all around it. So it's fun to watch the professionals go out and start dunking them in there. Makes me feel a little bit better, sadly to say. But I did. I ended up parring 17. So that's a highlight in my golfing career. Is having parred 17. I tell you, if you know the course, 17, there's an island green, but then 18, there's water up the left-hand side. And the 18th hole, I think, is much harder than the 17th hole. It's like you're standing out on an island and you have to pick how far you're going to hit that driver to land it. And let me tell you, Mike, I pumped my drive so far in the right woods that I bogeyed that hole. I had to punch out and then got hit it on and then two putted for my bogey. But 18 was a lot harder. So it's just fun to relive it. My wife and I, we got married in the clubhouse, so we got to see the veranda and things. We had our reception on, and there's a balcony where we got pictures taken, and it's just a lot of good memories. So I know you already heard that story, but I wanted to share it because one, it's fun for me to relive those memories. I had a really good wedding, and I've married a wonderful woman. But it's fun to relive it with my kids. My boys are old enough now, so they're asking me questions about where I was, hole 16 because it overlooks 17, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's what's going on. Anything going on with the Stevens family you want to report?
Not that exciting. That's
Well,
pretty cool.
you're building a fence. I know that of you. You're putting a fence up in your backyard, so that's something. Uh, that's
Yeah.
about it. So yeah, digging holes, and I forget
Yeah.
what kind of fence it was. It was some fancy name that I never heard of. I'm a city boy. I don't know farm stuff.
Yeah, it's just it's nothing fancy. I'm putting the fence up because my dogs keep running off. I live in the boonies and they take off, and I'm just putting I'm fencing in my backyard, so to speak, out in the country, which just sounds weird, but anyway.
You got a couple of Bernese mountain dogs that
Yeah,
Ollie and
they like to run around the woods for some reason. So
well, they're sweet girls. We just don't want anything happening to them. So Mike's putting a fence up. That's what his week's gonna consist of. I asked him why he didn't have it done already. He spent 2 days on it. And he
And the
laughed.
reason is because there's frost in the ground. I dug down about a foot and hit solid ice and hit frost. So my fence building project is on delay right now, hoping
On hold,
for
huh?
warm weather.
You're waiting for Dave to come out and help you.
Anyway,
It's a free labor.
let's cut to part two, Dave. People don't care
Sorry.
about so much
I
our
don't know. I like golf, so I don't mind talking about golf. Yeah, fences. I'll admit it's a little more boring. All right, let me do the podcast stuff. So we do our podcasts for three reasons. The first reason is to provide education. We want everyone to have the knowledge to make their own decision. So if you listen to this, it's something you study, you think through, and you decide not for me, that makes us just as happy as if you jump into IBC for the reasons that we believe it's kind of the best way to leverage your money in terms of velocity and speed and things like that. The second reason is we want to give you practical, applicable examples and knowledge. So we just did a podcast. Part one is purchasing a car using IBC. Most people have cars. It's something that our society kind of deems as necessary to get around. Not everybody has them. I understand that, and IBC can be used with anything, but most of the time, people understand purchasing a car. Um, so to give examples that, like I said, are applicable that everyone can relate to is another goal that we have. The third one is to kind of spread the word. We want to get the message out. So if you would do all the podcast things, if you'd like, subscribe, share with whomever, say, hey, I listened to these news talk about IBC. I found it kind of interesting. Listen to it. Tell me what you think. That would be great. Send us around all you can. My hope is that people will call us up, tell us we're wackadoos, and then we get to have a conversation about why IBC does what we're saying it does. And it's not just us. The math is there. A lot of people before us have found the same thing. And again, that's the whole goal behind this is to get the education out. Our phone number is 507-205-2284. Either Mike and I will answer that phone if you give it a call. My email is dave@familybankingsolutions.com. Mike's is mike@familybankingsolutions.com. You can get a hold of us there. And then in the show notes is all of our social media stuff. So if you want to get in contact with us, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those things, that stuff is there. That's it. Part two. So recap part one. We kind of talked about an example Nelson gives in his book, Mike, about purchasing a vehicle, and comparing an asset in the CD and having your money make money there, but then comparing it to IBC in the what I would consider stark differences that exist there. We want to talk through in part two kind of some of the more granular aspects of that, maybe get, and to use our term, into the weeds a little bit more, but talk through maybe the first couple of years people would have a question about if they've studied Nelson's chart or if they saw it on YouTube last time, maybe answer some questions that we tend to get looking at that specific example, but then to delve more into maybe how this is a long-term play. It does take some denial of immediate gratification. And then the third part is looking at all the variables. It's not a one thing fits all. The beauty in IBC and the fun part for us is that this can fit into what you're already doing. It's not a question of will it, it's how can it? And that's the fun part for us and fitting that puzzle of IBC into what you're already doing. Big, small, multi-million dollars versus $150 a month. IBC fits into all that because IBC is a mentality and a theory rather than a tangible investment or something like that. It's not an investment. It is a cash flow system. So I'm done talking. Mike's getting his stuff up, turned his camera off, getting ready to go. When that camera goes off, he's got something good coming up. So he's pulling it up for those of you listening. That's the same chart we had in part one. So Mike, if I can set the scene, those people who are astute observers and look at numbers and they notice patterns and differences. Year one, looking at method D versus looking at method E. Method D, there's $5,200 in there available to use for a CD, and then method E, there's only $1,033. Can you take it from there and kind of start walking us through the thinking that's behind maybe why that is the way it is, and then why that's not that big of a deal?
Well, first of all, when you put in the $5,000 into a CD, and then after 1 year you have 5,200, so that the math on that is using a 5.5% interest rate on the CD and a 30% tax bracket, which takes it down to a net after tax of 4%, and 4% of 5,000 is $200. So if you're asking like, how did we get this $5,200 when we put in 5,000? That's where it comes from. And as Dave mentioned on episode one last week, 5.5% CD in today's world is like unheard of. Dave, you checked on it, I think last week, and you said it was like what, a percent or
1.7 something percent, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So again, this is more that just for concept. I mean, things change every year. Interest rates change all the time. So just conceptually comparing one method versus the other. So looking at the IBC side, again, this is showing Nelson shows $1,933. When we're building these today, it normally works out to be about 60%. So that's going to be in today's world about $3,000, but still it's going to be a couple $1,000s less than the CD option. And the reason for that is you're building not only you're building a cash flow system, but you're also building a IBC policy inside of a life insurance contract. And there are some advantages that you are paying for there when you're building that, specifically the death benefit. So the insurance company, if I can jump ahead, I hope I have this right here. So yeah, so this goes on to the next page. And I know this is showing a different page here on a PDF version, but in the book, this is page 46, when Nelson goes through and explains exactly what's happening, where again, this is where he's showing this 1,933 cash value, but there's also almost $478,000 of death benefit here. So you're paying for that. You're setting up a system, not only for cash flow for you, but a legacy for your family. And there's a cost to that. So as Dave said, you kind of have to forego the immediate gratification of these two systems. One is going to be, you're making money right away. One, you're going to be behind a little bit. So let's look at, I like to look at it in year 7 after we're done capitalizing the policy. Again, this is showing we put in $5,000 a year for 7 years. So we have $35,000 in the CD using the CD option, $35,000 out of pocket, but we have $41,000 in the bank in the CD. And that's because we made $6,000 interest off the CD. Pretty good.
Yep.
The other option, using the IBC method, we put $35,000 into the policy, and we have basically, this shows 35.9 in year 7. So let's say 36 to 41, we're about $5,000 behind the CD option. And again, Nelson refers to, this comparison as the CD sisters. One sister puts it in a CD and the other sister tries the IBC method. So let's say, for example, that these two individuals were going to have a little friendly competition and compare their two strategies, and they met after year 7, after they've capitalized their systems and have both put in $35,000. And one has 41,000 and the other one has 36. And over lunch, they're talking like, man, you really made a mistake. I'm $5,000 ahead of you. Like, wow, I'm way better off. But let's say tragically they're driving home and they're killed in an automobile accident. The sister that put her money into a CD that has $41,000, and let's say she's going to, leave that to her kids as her beneficiary, those kids are going to get $41,000. I don't know if there's going to be tax implications there, but that's what they're going to get. Whereas the sister that, even though her cash value shows $36,000, she's going to leave $571,000 to her kids or her beneficiary, because her money has an added benefit being inside of a life insurance policy. So yes, is there a $5,000 difference there? Yes, there is. You'll eventually make that up over time, but there's big advantages, even though you have that $5,000 deficit. And as this shows here, by year 15, the IBC option surpasses the CD option. So bottom line is, you have to ask yourself a question that if I put money into my system, if I use a CD or I use the IBC system where we use a specially designed life insurance policy, and you look at which one is better from a cash available standpoint, is the CD option ahead in the first few years? And the answer is yes. You are going to be behind a little bit using a life insurance policy. However, jumping down to the very end, over the course of your lifetime, when you, let's say, retire at the age of 71, the CD option has 259,000 and the IBC has 964, which is a difference of $705,000. So, are you okay with foregoing a few $1,000s initially to be $705,000 ahead 50 years down the road? I mean, really, that's the question.
Well, I would answer, yes to that question. And I think you've already alluded to it. That right-hand column and the chart that you go to shows it. The right-hand column is the death benefit. There is the security that exists there, the contractual security in that death benefit along that 50-year road, Mike, that exists because everyone is going to die. It's not a matter of if, it's when. The hard part is we don't know when, but there is that death benefit security along that road, even as your money is making more money. So when I talk to a lot of families, my wife, I'll use her as an example, loves the idea of that death benefit being there, even more so than she likes the idea of our money earning more money. So compare the CD and the money making aspect of the CD and the money making aspect of the IBC is great. But what often gets lost is the death benefit security that exists there. So I'm thankful we're going through and talking about this because that is a big deal in the progression in the story of this IBC concept is the death benefit aspect. So that's all. I wanted to throw it in there as a personal example.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point. So I mean, you're sacrificing a few $1,000s for a huge family legacy and protecting your family. Should
And
something
yeah, well,
happen
and
to
I was going to
you?
make that point for those that aren't aware. The day that contract is signed, that policy is in force. So if someone passes away that's insured 2 hours after the contract signed, that death benefit's getting paid out. They may not have put a penny into it. So there's absolute security in that death benefit in terms of monetary compensation that comes back to a family, help them as dealing with that tragic situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dave said, going back here to year one, I chose year seven here, comparing the 41,000 versus the 36,000. But in year one, they let's say they both put in $5,000 into their systems on January the 1st. The first sister puts it in the bank, opens up a CD, and the other sister puts the $5,000 in a life insurance policy, both on January the 1st. If January the 2nd, something should happen and they both pass away, again, the beneficiary for the CD sister is going to get basically 5,000. That $200 is made in interest over the year. So basically, that $5,000, that's about
It's
it.
five, yeah, it's $5,000.
The other sister, even though her cash value is less, it's going to be $478,000 ish that goes on to her family. So a huge benefit using a life insurance policy as kind of the vehicle for our IBC system.
So if I can recap, now I want to recap real quick, Mike, and I'm assuming that you're kind of have processed through your thought, but there's an acknowledgement that the cash available in the first few years is not as great in comparing the CD versus the IBC. But what we're trying to do is communicate a broader totality of what the picture looks like. The death benefit aspect, as well as asking the question, are you okay with giving up? And it's not necessarily you're giving up the cash. The money's still in the ledger. The cash value that you can use is not as great. But are you okay with that, with the scope of the long term in mind? Like, are you, to ask your question again, are you willing to give up in year seven that $5,000 to be able to, in year whatever 51, if I remember correctly, to have that $700,000 in excess compared to the CD? That's a dramatic question, but the numbers are there, and it's consistently that way. Any way IBC policies are set up compared to other asset systems. So that's kind of, I wanted to summarize that. Is that a good summary, or anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, the whole concept, the infinite banking concept, it's long-term vision. And I know we've talked about that before in previous podcast, but it's a long-term play. It's years out. It's in some cases generations out, not just looking 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the road. So, for example, I like to use the analogy of it's like a sprint versus a marathon. Whereas when you're running a marathon, it really doesn't matter so much if you're ahead in the first mile or two. And a lot of those guys, when you see, races, whether it's marathons or whether it's cycling like the Tour de France, or it's horse or whatever, usually those guys that are guys and gals that are they'll kind of stay back a little bit. They're fine with being behind, and then they want to be leading at the end of the marathon, at the end of 26.2 miles. They don't really care if they're ahead the first or second mile. Well, this, when we're talking about a financial journey, I mean, it's a long play. It's a marathon. If it's not that important to you to be ahead in the first couple of years, knowing that you're going to be, in this case, $705,000 ahead down the road, are you okay with foregoing the immediate gratification? So I think we've kind of beat that dead horse a little bit, but yes, there is a difference there. And we bring this up because this is one of the questions that we get very frequently when someone says, well, wait a minute, you're telling me if I put $5,000 in the first year that I don't have $5,000? I only have 2 or 3 thousand, which again, it's going to be more like three, but here it's showing 1933. But I mean, still, people think, well, if I put 5,000 in and I only have 3,000, why would anyone do that? I'm losing money that makes 0 cents. And that's what we're trying to explain and illustrate here, that over time, it makes all the sense in the world. You just have to have a longer term vision than the first year.
Yeah. And even getting into the weeds, that $5,000 hasn't gone anywhere. It's just the cash value loan you're able to get. And those are all definition semantic things. But the reason, and maybe that's a question people are asking, like, why does this IBC method grow so much faster? Is because that money, I like to say, does not come off the ledger. That 5 grand is still in the ledger. You're just only, in this example, able to use in terms of cash value 1933. But the second year, there's going to be $10,000 in the ledger. Third year, 15, and that just keeps growing. There's no subtraction sign, and then that thing takes off. In the CD, each time a car is purchased, the interest that's being made, the interest being made is being made on a lower amount of money because that money has been taken out. So that's probably another podcast. But yeah, it's hard to argue against the numbers in the long term. And this is an acknowledgement that in the first couple years, there's some concession that needs to be made. In that, yeah, I understand that I may not have as much cash value, but look at the security benefit and the death benefit. This, I know my family's safe. And then as I have that long-term vision, it's kind of hard to argue the difference in the longer years. The more that thing matures, the wider the gap becomes, and it's difficult to argue with those numbers. It gets me excited. It's maybe another way to put it. So we talked through, Mike, the first couple of years. We talked through kind of the immediate gratification. The other thing we wanted to hit in this podcast is So I don't have $5,000 to just stow away for 7 years. Like I can't do that. And then we often talk to people that we're talking, I got $300 extra a month in my budget. Is IBC for me? So, Mike, if we can, let's have a discussion about maybe the variables that exist in setting up these policies and why it is absolutely okay to have $300 a month in a policy and what can be done with that, how can be leveraged. Can you still buy a car over a certain amount of time? I don't know where you want to take it, but how can we have a conversation through the variables that exist in setting up an IBC policy?
Yeah, and I think that's a very common question that we get is people say, "Oh, so this system costs $5,000 a year." I mean, right here it is, 5,000 a year for 7 years. That's what I need to be looking at. Okay, again, this is just an example that Nelson used to illustrate, the comparison between these two methods here. The amount, it doesn't matter if you think it more like a checkbook. We're building a cash flow system and you're opening an account, if you will, and you're going to put, you go to a bank and say, "How I want to open a checking account." They don't say, "Oh, okay, well, you got to put $5,000 in this account every year for 7 years." No, I mean, you get to choose what you put in. And yes, there's some restrictions there on, where you're limited. You put a certain amount in every year. You have to put that amount in. You can't put more than that. And we can get into that later as well. But point being, it doesn't have to be $5,000. I think I have a client that puts in, I think, 150 bucks a month. I think a total of 1,800 a year.
Yep.
And I have clients that put in, I mean, well above, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Anything that fits into your situation is fine for the amount. The also, does it have to be 7 years? Well, no, it doesn't have to be 7 years. It can be longer. It can be shorter. Going back to Nelson's book here. Let's see. I'm going to go to, it's page 54 in the book, but it's different on this PDF here. So in page 54 in Nelson's book, he has another illustration where he's using a specially designed policy where they're financing some, equipment, some logging trucks actually. And he uses this example where they're putting in, again, not 5,000 for 7 years, but he's putting in 40,000 for 4 years. So again, the amount doesn't matter. The time frame, you want to have a minimum of 4 years, but 5 years is better. 7 years is better yet. 10 years, 20 years. It's just how long you want to capitalize your system. It's like you're putting money into your checking account or your safe. Just you want to put as much money in there as you can because when you understand the benefits of it, you're going to look at it as you are depositing money into your cash flow system. It's not a premium or it's not a payment that you have to make. It's a deposit that you get to make.
Ooh, I like that, Mike. That was good.
But that's a common question we get is, like how many times have you received that, Dave? Someone calls you up and says, "Hey, okay, I really like the idea of this IBC concept. Like, how much does one of these cost?" And it
Yeah, that's
always makes
usually the
me
question.
just, yeah, it always makes me just smile. Like there's no cost. You
Yeah.
determine how much you want to put in, and you kind of need to be consistent with that, and you need to do it, the kind of the same amount for at least 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, even better. But you determine what that amount is and start your system and go from there.
Oh, I'm often finding myself saying, Mike, it's not a matter of if IBC can work for you, it's how. And that goes to that point. I have a couple in underwriting. They're run their mortgage through a policy. And then the policy is gonna be on their kids. So over the course of time, the goal is to have the death benefit go out to their grandkids. So they're gonna bless their grandkids. We've done a podcast on that. But they're taking something they're already paying, a mortgage, and running it through the policy. So we've talked through the implications of what that looks like and how that can work. And that's what Mike and I are here to do. We're here to be resources that way, and we love doing it because we get excited talking about this stuff. But they're thinking long term, and they're doing something they're already doing. And to your question, well, how much does it cost? They're putting in $800 a month. I have a kid. I call him a kid because I'm getting old. 150. There's smaller ones. I I have an investor buddy. He's doing $50,000 a year. So there's no cost to these. It's what you want to put in. We'll help you design it. We'll help get you to the comfortability you need to be at. And then we'll start running stuff through this. And that money just starts coming back to your family over time. You got to give it some time. You got to be consistent and fun in it for at least 4 years. Like Mike said, five's better, seven's better yet. But if you can do that, the money just comes back to your family over the long term, and you start talking legacy wealth rather than simply paying bills. And there is a big distinction between those things. And I think that's where our passion comes from. Build legacy wealth at the same time pay your bills. And you can do both with this method. And that's why I think it's so beneficial. And I would speak for you too. And that you've seen it change lives. You're way older than I am, Mike. So you've been seeing this done for a long time. That was supposed to be a joke. You didn't even laugh. So for those of you listening, Mike just gave me a stone cold
I
stare.
am way older than you.
But my point is, you've seen this bless a lot of people longer than I have. So I don't know if any example comes to your mind. Um, is there one that sticks out to you as maybe one of your favorite IBC stories? You know, without giving names or too many details. Is there one? I don't think I've ever asked you that question.
Wow. There's a ton. Over the years, I've just gotten lots of, in talking with clients, and I usually talk to every one of my clients at least once a year, if not once a month or quarterly, depending on what all they're doing through their policies and their system of policies. But yeah, just lots of appreciation and thankfulness of, that someone introduced this to them because they'd never heard of it. I have the same story. I didn't even start this until I was 50. And I wish someone would have introduced it to me, 30 years prior to that. Uh, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, just lots. I've never had anyone, never heard of anyone coming back and saying, "Man, I started this, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have, taken another." Well, whatever. It's just everyone is grateful and appreciative and glad they made a decision to start an IBC system with their family.
Well, Jess and I share often because I think I've shared several times on the podcast. We own a land business. So we buy and sell land around the nation. And we talk to a lot of people that are interested in the topic. We talk to a lot of other land investors. And I often get asked the question, what would you do differently? And consistently my answer is, I wish I would have started running my business through an IBC policy from the onset. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying land, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I could have run that through my IBC policy, that money could still be on the ledger and I still would have run it through my business and purchased land. And I would have been that much further ahead in my IBC policy. So I if you can, I don't I guess all I can do is encourage those that are listening and watching. Call us, ask questions. Um, we're pretty nice guys, if I could say that. I don't know if you can say
We're
that about
happy to help.
yourself. I don't know if you can say that about yourself. I feel a little weird doing that, but I think it's true. My wife would say that. I don't know. That's not a good gauge of measure. I know your wife would say that. So I love Miss Tanya. But give us a call. We want to talk to you about it. We've certainly had people tell us no. That's part of the deal. It's with anything. It wasn't for them, but they understood it. And that's what our mission is. We want you to understand it and then make a decision. So if we can help in that understanding at all, please give us the opportunity. Give us a shout. So my email is dave@familybankingsolutions.com. Mike's is mike at familybankingsolutions.com. Our phone number is 507-205-2284. In the show notes are all of our social media stuff. Get in contact with us there. But our hope is that we can continue to bring some podcasts to you. Hopefully give you something new to chew on, think about. And I got to start bringing some better jokes or something, Mike. I know I didn't have one to start off. So we'll bring some jokes later. That's why people will start coming. And the Mike Stevens stories. We got to get more Mike Stevens stories out. So I'm not going to put you on the spot for one of those, but be prepared. May have to come out some more. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks for joining us for this part 2 here. We'll look forward to seeing you next time, and we'll catch you on the next IBC, guys.